routine for me. So I'm going to start off by explaining how to set up a file on Illustrator. So I've already kind of set one up for us to start with, but when you start a new artboard or artboards, you just go to your file, new, name your file. Usually I will set it to, I'll just leave it at all of this stuff, and then as I'm designing it, I will change it based off of what it needs to be. And also if it needs to, if I need to create multiple artboards, I can do that during the time that I'm designing it. And I can show you how I'll do that, but I'll just leave it at letter unless I know specifically what it needs to be. And usually I will change it to pixels, because that's what I usually work with from Illustrator to web when I design stuff. Usually we work in pixels. It's just easier. And then you can change your orientation. Bleed is something that you can set if you are printing, and it basically leaves an amount of space around the artboard that when they are cutting down your art, they need that extra space. So if there's something that goes, a picture that goes off the page, you want that all to go off the bleed, so it will, so they don't cut and there's just white space. You want to be able to see whatever image or line or something that goes off the artboard. You want to be able to see that, and if you go right up to the edge and you don't go over the bleed, it may get cut short. So that's important with printing, but we won't need that today. And this is what it will look like when you create an artboard, but we'll go back to my new 01. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Photoshop or Illustrator, but usually with Illustrator, you're able to create multiple artboards. So it's really as easy as going up to your document setup, edit artboard, and you can click. And I usually use a lot of quick keys. But usually you can use Shift, just hold Shift while you're clicking and you drag it over. Oh, that didn't work. I apologize. You push Shift and Option actually, and you'll see those two little arrows, the black and white ones. That means that you're copying what you're clicking on, and you hold those and drag and then let go. And that should create another artboard exactly the same as what you've already done. And I use this a lot when I'm doing design, because it's easier to keep things really consistent, which is important because you're doing the exact, especially with web, you're doing the exact same design, or you're doing the exact same like template setup, and you don't want to go in and have to reset all of that stuff. It's really, this saves a lot of time. So and if you need to get rid of an artboard, the same way, edit artboards and then just delete. And then you see there's like a little dotted line around this. You can get rid of that by just going back to your arrow. If you're in a weird spot and you don't know what's going on, you can just push your arrow, and it usually will take you back to your main view of your artboard. And in Photoshop, you only get one artboard, and you're not able to zoom in and out of that artboard. See, with this, I can zoom. I can get really close to this artboard. I mean, pretty close. I mean, and then you have all of this space, which is plenty, but I have filled it all before. So, but it's really nice to have all that space to work in, because you kind of have like, it's kind of like your scrap area over here. Like if you want to like do something and you're not ready to put it on the artboard yet, you just want to like see what it looks like first. And nice. Let's see. So a lot of the tools in, I thought I had a point that I was going to make, but I forgot what it was. Oh, okay. So when you're so you notice that the artboard is white and the background is gray. So there's different ways you can work in Illustrator. They give you a lot of options with like so a lot of people like to see their artboard. Let's see. You can change that to be just white. So if you hide your artboard's still there, but you just have a giant white space instead of that gray area to work in. And some people like that because things look different on white background than they do on gray background, especially colors. That's a big thing. You always want to work on a white background if you're doing colors, because that color is going to change based off the background that it's on. And that's a whole other lesson of color theory. But it's really good to work with a white background. Sometimes, though, this gets kind of frustrating because you'll lose your artboard and you're like, oh, crap, where is it? So you just have to go back up here and show artboard again. There it is. So we'll go back down here. So a lot of people work differently with how they set up, like how they're organized, you know, and with any aspect in life. But with Illustrator, you have a lot of options, like how you want to set things up. So with your artboards, they give you all these little panels that, you know, you can display all your tools. One of those tools is you're able to access your layers, which is more of a thing in Photoshop than it is in Illustrator. I don't really use layers that often unless I'm working with a lot of stuff, like with web especially, because you want to keep things very separated so you're not clicking on one thing and it's attached to one thing, and it gets really like tedious. So you want to make sure, like, if you are working with a lot of elements, that you do have layers, especially like if you have a background. Like say you want to do this design and you know you're gonna have, like, it's gonna have a background of some sort. Like, perfect example, screen printing. You know that it's gonna be on a t-shirt of some color, and you want to do a couple of different designs, you know, so you set your let's put some RGB. Yeah. So you know your shirt's going to be pink, so you want to make sure that you keep that background. Well, you can even rename it shirt and just lock it. And that way, whatever else, and you want to create another layer, because once you lock a layer, you cannot do anything on it. It won't let you. Once you like create you create that layer, then you can do stuff. Let's see. Yeah, whatever. So, I mean, backgrounds are really important when you need to keep things locked while you work on top of it. And sometimes you'll have like several layers that you have on top of each other, and you need to make sure, like, if you are trying to get to a certain element and like it's like on the bottom, you're not going to be able to like click on it directly. You might have to use this tool, which is yeah, direct select. That's what it's called. Direct select tool is really really nice because it'll actually let you select within layers, and you don't, like, if this was, even though this is locked, oh, I guess it won't let me do it. Well, it has to be unlocked, but you can still select within like a layer, like something very specific. There's nothing really here that's too specific. It's not gonna that it can't select, but like let me, for example, so okay, like if you had a group, so these are grouped, and I just quick keyed that, but you can, let's do, if you select what you want to group, and groups basically, and you can show, it'll show you in your layers, like if I group this, so right click, group. Now that becomes one layer. That little blue and pink square are together. So now that is all on one layer, and the shirt layer doesn't have anything on it. But so say I grouped all this stuff, and it's like tons of stuff, and you want to select one thing in it, but if you try to click on this with your black arrow, it's going to select the whole thing. Yeah, your white arrow is awesome because you can go in and be like, I just want the blue square. And you can even move it around. And if it's text, let's ungroup these again. Make this white so you guys can see it. I was supposed to say text. Okay. So say all this stuff's grouped, and this is like a blog or something. I don't know. It's a design, and it has like text within this design, and it's all attached. It's all in a group. Oops. If you want to group stuff, I use quick keys a lot, but it's Command G on your Mac and Control G on your PC. I'm not sure. So everything's grouped. And you're like, man, I really want to change this text. It's not what I want. You should be able to go in with your white arrow, your direct select, and just double click and alter it. So really nice. It's a good tool. And this is actually the latest version of Illustrator. Some of the older versions of Illustrator may have different tools. I know I've had to adjust with some of the tools. I was working with CS3, then CS6, and now CC. But it just depends. But they all do basically the same thing. Like the direct and indirect tool have always been the same. There may be a few new things, but they basically have kept that pretty consistent. Okay, I don't want to get too off target here. Okay, let's see. Look at my list. So artboards, you've seen like the space that we work in, the toggle between the gray and the white background. Let's see. Okay, so another way to keep yourself organized when you're setting up your artboard is your grids and guides. So there's these things called smart guides, which I will use sometimes. They kind of get annoying because they will select literally everything that you put your arrow on. So you can kind of see, let's go up a little bit. You can kind of see like it will select it, and it's really nice because if you're making lines, like it'll line up with anything you want it to line up. So this is really good when you're doing layouts. Like if I need to lay out text and it needs to all line up in a certain way, it will line it up like when I'm moving the text. Oops, let's not ungroup all that. So it will literally help me line up however I want it to line up, which is cool. But yeah, so guides, and then there's rulers, which I highly recommend. I use rulers all the time, even if I'm not doing layout, or I mean print or something. Or there's no text. I still use rulers. And the way they work is that you see on the side, and you can change these units. It's in inches for some reason, but it should be in pixels. I thought I put pixels. Anyway, so you pull these like lines out, but you have to go and click on the ruler and just drag it out. And you can drag these lines out, and they'll help you, like if you want to set like a 1/2 inch border, you just drag it out to 1/2 inch. You can delete these too. So you can also lock them. So if you don't want them to move and you need that to stay there, you can just set that through here. So you just go to guides and then lock guides. That way I cannot select these now. These are frozen. Okay. So, and that's really good to help you stay like organized with your artboard. Let's see. What else? You can also set a grid. This kind of can get a little crazy though, because the grid is so, I know you can set the color of it too, but I don't I don't use the grid so much unless I'm being really meticulous, like, because it's just kind of gives you a headache after a while looking at that grid. But yeah, you can use that, and you can't really see it. I know you can set it so that it goes over the design, but the way it shows up on your artboard is like that. So you can kind of, like, if you work on grid paper, a lot of designers will set up their design on grid paper and then transfer it over, and it's easier for them because they can look at the squares on their grid paper, and that's how they match it up to the design on the screen. At least that's how I've seen them do it, and I've done that myself before. Makes it a lot easier to transfer designs if you're more of a drawer and you want to, you know, put that on the computer. So I'm going to go through a few of these little tools. The ones that I use the most, let's see. The pen tool has probably been one of the biggest tools, or most used tools of mine. And there's a lot of options. So the pen tool allows you to create vector images, which is mostly what Illustrator is, obviously. But and it's changed so much. So I apologize if I'm not completely sure of like because this is the newest Illustrator. So I haven't been as familiar with the pen tool on here. It is a lot nicer though, because you can so you can create these like shapes, and like, so you can kind of see. Oh wait, let me turn this grid off. Oh, that's better. Sorry. And delete these. Okay. All right, let's start with the whiteboard here. And okay, so these are your two color settings. So you have your fill color and you have your stroke color. And if you're creating an object, you can set a stroke and a fill to it, any object or any like element. So like a square can have a fill color of red and a stroke color of blue. And you can set that stroke. When I say stroke, it's like the outline, if anybody was wondering. So this is the stroke settings, and there's a lot of settings here. So you can make it rounded corners with, you don't really see the end of the line since it's a square. But here you have a lot of options with that. I've used a dash line before. I don't really mess around with this stuff. So yeah, so if I wanted to set my square to like 3, I could, or whatever. You can set it as high as you want, honestly. And now you can kind of see that rounded edge. All right, sorry, off topic. So a lot of the tools, so the pen tool, and I got a picture that we could use to kind of give an example of how, oh gosh, it wasn't supposed to look like that. My fish got destroyed. Oh, it's a GIF. That's why. Or just get an image. And when I look for images online to kind of get like to go by, because I mean, it's easy to, and we won't go over like a lot of in-depth design stuff, but we'll use this one. You just usually just drag it straight from the browser to Illustrator. That's really nice too. And I've tried to do that with Photoshop, and it is a little testy. So Illustrator is a little bit more laid back when it comes to that. So so your pen tool basically can let you can trace. See, so you can follow the line and click and drag, and you can manipulate this line to being curved or not. So if you just click, oh, well, that's a bad example, but if you just, let's see, if you click from here, it's going to be a straight line. But if you wanted to make curves, you have to click and drag. So, and then obviously this is set to a fill, and you want it to be a line. So you just, this little arrow here lets you switch those like that. So that's basically how the pen tool works, not too complicated. Now, I wouldn't sit here and trace this entire thing. Illustrator has come up with a wonderful tool called Image Trace or Live Trace. It used to be called, I don't know if that's what it's called still, but it's Image Trace on here. And it may not trace it very well because I don't know how high resolution this image is, but if you have a high res photo and it's black, that's how it recognizes it, is the black in it. So the black lines, it will trace that for you. See, and it's a really low res photo, but usually if it's a high res or if it's pretty good quality, it will trace that image for you. So you don't have to sit there and do that with the pen tool. And if we expand it, you can actually, and then just delete the white space out of it. So what happened here was when you live trace it, Illustrator traces it for you, but these don't become lines, they actually become objects. So, and the difference between a line and an object is that you see how it's kind of like, there's not really like a, let's see, I have to zoom to show you really, but okay, so you see how I guess the guide of that line, the path, is in the very middle of that. So that's actually just it's not actually an object, it's a line that has a stroke to it. These actually is a fill. So you can tell by looking over here, so this is a stroke. And that means you can change that fill or that stroke for how big you want it or small. And for this, it's let's see. Oh, well, it's supposed to be black, but it does that when you do image trace. You have to like delete the background, which is white. But anyway, so this would be black, and you change your fill, not your stroke. So this is a really bad example fish, but it's the general idea. So, and so you can live trace this, and then another cool tool is Magic Wand, which it will select everything that is that color, or yeah. So everything that is white, it will select when I do this, and you can just delete that out, and there's your fish. So let me see what else. I don't really use the paintbrush too much. Eraser I use sometimes to like do touch-ups and stuff, but your eyedropper is a really good tool to use when you're trying to match color. So say you have like a design and you have this color that you have to use for, for the brand or whatever. And you're like, man, I gotta use that color like in this design. So you can take your eyedrop tool, and it has to, whatever you want whatever you're trying to change to be that color, you have to have it selected. So just click on it and then select and then come over here and click your eyedropper tool, and then just do that, and it should change it to that color. That's really helpful when you're trying to match color. And sometimes you have to be careful, especially I know personally with like the Cellar Labs green has been a pain because it's a very specific green, and you can tell by, if you double click on your color, it will actually bring up your color picker, which allows you to go more in depth, and you can change like your RGB or your CMYK depending on what you're working with, and then you have your hex code color, so you can change it there. And sometimes it could be off by like a letter or a number, but you want to make sure that you're staying consistent. So because sometimes your Illustrator, like whatever your color what's it called, your color settings, just make sure that you are you check those before you get started designing, because you want to make sure you're staying in the right color settings as you were with your other design artboards. So it just keeps things consistent with the colors. But I think that's about it as far as like the basics. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Here's another artboard. Here's your actual artboards. So if you have like tons of, like, say you're doing a ton of little icons and you have like 30 artboards, this is a good way to keep up with your artboards, like what number artboard it is, because it numbers it whenever you create another one. So if you're trying to save them in a particular order, this is where you want to organize those. So, and if anyone has any questions at this point, or if they want to see something done, just let me know. I lost my screen. Hold on a second. Oops, what is it? Oh, there you are. All right, cool. Does anybody have any questions? Of course. And if you guys have any other questions later on, you know where to find me. Yep, no problem. Do I just sign